And as I sat there with Santiago on that day, a day that was over 5 hours long and 5 bottles in, I was in my mind thinking, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. What if it all went to hell? And I asked myself that question, but I also asked the other side of it. Well, what if it worked? And I thought, I do private equity. I've been putting on schmooze fests and gatherings forever. So that's part of who I am. And I thought, wine. Wine was a perfect lubricant. It was a perfect glue. It was a perfect way to bring people together and combine that with my private equity and community building. And yes, this all just makes sense to me.
Welcome to What If with Leslie Grandy. Most conversations about entrepreneurship still center on invention, the new idea, the breakthrough, person starting from zero with nothing but a sketch and a hunch. Yet some of the most demanding entrepreneurial work begins not with a blank page, but with something already in motion. Companies with employees, customers, habits, and history. Stepping into those businesses is its own form of creative leadership. Not the creativity of invention, but the kind of creativity that supports transformation. Operating an existing company well demands imagination of a different kind. You have to see possibility inside constraint. You have to notice patterns others miss. You have to decide what to preserve and what to change, and how to respect a legacy while still moving it forward. It's a creative act rooted in discernment and curiosity rather than novelty. Instead of asking, what if we built this? The question becomes, what if this was adapted, sharpened, and pushed further? There's also a structural shift underway that makes this form of creativity more visible. Thousands of profitable companies are approaching a generational handoff. Many are essential, local, and deeply embedded in their communities. And there's an opportunity to not only sustain these businesses, but to accelerate them. At the same time, new tools are changing how quickly a business can evolve once someone new steps in. The result is a different path into entrepreneurship, one that favors people willing to operate, refine, and elevate rather than simply invent. The win is finding the right entrepreneur and matching them to the right opportunity so these businesses advance both technologically and through an expansive strategic lens at a much faster rate. This episode explores that path. It looks at what separates people who can take on a functioning business and make it better from those who can only imagine building one from scratch. It considers how pattern recognition develops over a long investing career, what signals matter when you're backing someone to run a company they didn't start, and why the creative act of operating, done well, can be just as transformative as the creative act of inventing. My guest today, John Staenberg, has spent decades investing in people who choose that path and learning what separates those who can carry a business forward from those who aren't well suited for it. He's excited about the generational handoff that is unfolding as baby boomer owners look to pass on the companies they built to a new class of AI native operators ready to modernize and grow them. And we talk about his pursuit of an entirely different type of venture that, perhaps unexpectedly, mirrors the same mindset he brings to his investments, cultivating something over time, working with what already exists, and knowing when to intervene and when to let things develop on their own. I hope you enjoy this episode. My guest today is John Staenberg. John is a general partner at Agate Helm Fund, the first fund of funds dedicated to search funds. For nearly a decade now, he's been investing in searchers who acquire and operate established businesses, bringing both hard-won pattern recognition and capital to entrepreneurs stepping into their first CEO role. With over 3 decades as a PE investor, John has served as general partner in 3 funds managing more than $325 million, been a venture partner in 3 additional funds, and made over 250 angel investments. When he's not evaluating investments, John tends his vineyard in Argentina, producing wines under the Hand of God label, a pursuit, he says, that shares more with search fund investing than you might think. Welcome to the podcast, John. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for that nice introduction, Leslie, and thrilled to be here.
Well, let's start with those first 2 pursuits. Why did you choose a life that balances both investing and winemaking? And do both pursuits complement each other, or do they inform each other in some way in how you approach them?
I think both is the answer. I have always looked at life and what happens next as trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together of saying, what are my passions and what are the things I pretty good at and what are the things that make sense to me as the next thing. And I always try and imagine, how can I take from this and take from that and add to this, and so that it all goes up together. And I'll give you a real life example of that. So what the hell was I doing thinking I should go to Argentina and buy a vineyard? Well, I didn't actually think that. It was an afterthought after I drank some of the most amazing wine I'd ever had in my life. And I looked at this incredible place with these Andes mountains. And I was sitting across from a man who was so skilled in winemaking and so much had the gift of gab, meaning he was a guy that could be an amazing persona and mouthpiece for a brand. And I just said, I'm happy. Right now, I am happy with this situation. How can I extend that in my life? That's really what the situation was. I didn't go to Argentina thinking I was going to buy a vineyard. And people ask me all the time, by the way, was that a lifelong dream of yours? No, a lifelong dream of mine is always thinking about what would be fun and who would be fun to do it with. And is there a way to do it creatively and differently than others have done it before? And as I sat there with Santiago on that day, a day that was over 5 hours long and 5 bottles in, I was in my mind thinking, oh my gosh, I could actually do this. And so I often approach life with the notion of, I can probably do this. What is the downside? What if it all went to hell? And I asked myself that question, but I also asked the other side of it. Well, what if it worked? And I thought to myself, and that was back in 2007. And I thought, I do private equity. I've been putting on schmooze fests and gatherings forever. So that's part of who I am. And I thought, wine. Wine was a perfect lubricant. It was a perfect glue. It was a perfect way to bring people together and combine that with my private equity and community building. And yes, this all just makes sense to me. And that really is a convoluted way that I came to my conclusion that I could actually do it.
I just want to say I love the what if I fail, what if I don't kind of approach to it, because I think there's magic in that for people, right? People jump in and then find out later they could fail and then they're disappointed or they don't have a plan for failure. But likewise, what would it look like if I succeed? And what do I want that? Is that the outcome I actually want for myself? So I love that you're balancing both of those as you're thinking about, does this fit?
And then I mentioned to you, I also thought, how could I do this in a way that hadn't been done? Because the world had plenty of wine. The world did not need another brand. But I thought Malbec, I could introduce that to the world. And it's such a lovely wine and relatively unknown at the time. Argentina is super sexy. And I wanted to bring not just wine to the audience, mostly Americans, but I wanted to bring all things Argentina as part of that, a sense of place. I wanted to bring an experience of a wine that maybe they hadn't had before because this winemaker was so special. And so all of those things, and then, if you remember, 2007, right around that time, I thought, oh my gosh, social media. And direct to consumer. And all those things were just starting at that time. And I thought, okay, I come from a tech background. I can integrate those things into my approach. So in my mind, over those 5 hours of drinking and eating with Santiago, I was laying out a roadmap, and I got to the end of the thing, and I'm like, yeah, let's do this. And I sometimes say I took a left turn at Albuquerque, and I'm open to that. At my heart, I'm very lucky. I was given the gift of travel when I was young. And I think traveling is one of the great ways to be open to the world, because especially years ago, you didn't have Google Maps. You didn't have information flowing everywhere. You didn't have translators. You showed up in a place and you kind of had to go with the flow. You kind of had to figure things out. And I take that mindset even today when I'm traveling. I don't always use the technology. And I certainly always think about what alley can I go down as opposed to the main shopping street. And so I was lucky that I was given that gift early, because it helps me framework how to think about any decision. I'm open.
Yeah, and so I think there's being open is one thing, but you're actively curious, it sounds like,
Actively
too, right?
curious.
You're
I
right,
can't get
actively.
enough. I will be, if there's a defining piece of who I am as a person, I am the person that closes the bar or the restaurant. I will be the last person there. And I don't do it consciously. I'm just so interested in what is happening at the time and the people and the experience that I'm like, oh my gosh, is it really closing time? And so I am curious.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. What if one of those pursuits, winemaking or investing, had to go away? What would you lose? Like what, if you had to make a choice and you had to do just one of those things for some reason that obviously I'm not imagining the specifics, but you could be in a situation where you don't have the capacity or the health or whatever that could create a difficult challenge to continue to pursue both. Which would you like double down on, and which would you let go of?
That is a very prescient question, Leslie, because I'm letting go of the winery.
No, really?
Oh, yeah, I've done it for 20 years. Someone made me a very nice offer. Argentina's far away. I've met incredible people. I've had the experience. The wine industry is changing and it's getting harder. I really made a life decision that I want to focus on uh, entrepreneurship through acquisition or search funds or microcap B, my Agate Hound fund. That is what I want to do. I'm so passionate about it, and it's so clear to me. Wine's been great. I have a great cellar. I have great friends. I will continue to enjoy the culture of food and wine. In fact, I'm thrilled because in a month I'm going to Argentina to celebrate the sale of Hand of God, to celebrate the 20 years, to celebrate what an incredible opportunity was given to me and how much I've enjoyed it. So, if you want to come down, we'll be in Mendoza. We'll be at the vineyard. We'll be having an asado. We'll be eating and drinking and dancing and celebrating, which I don't think people do enough of, by the way, celebrating success, because life is short and we're going to do that. So your question's very timely, and I am doubling down on the PE that I have truly fallen in love with in a way. When I did venture 40 years ago, I saw it clearly. I knew this was going to be a big thing. I had no idea how big and how much it would scale and how much it would change the world, but I loved it. And search has so much of that same feeling. It's really rejuvenated my passion around entrepreneurship, and the people who are doing it inspire me. It's hard to describe. I just got back this week from the University of Texas Business School, McCombs Business School, where they had their very first entrepreneurship through acquisition conference. I was at the beginning of it. I promise you, in 20 years, that conference will still be going. And I was at the first one. So you were in technology earlier. You were at Vizio. You were at Amazon. It's fun to have a front row seat to watch something unfold that you know is going to be interesting and change the world. And I truly believe that's what's happening in that arena. So thank you for asking the question. That's what I'm doing, and that's why.
And what do you think you might miss? What do you think you'll notice that maybe isn't fulfilled or satisfied just by doing the and I know you're passionate about investing, and congratulations on the sale of the winery. I'm just curious though, like it feels like it filled a spot for you personally in some way, and maybe it's the social aspect of it, and maybe that won't be lost. But is there something that you know you're going to miss?
It's funny. I am not leaving the culture of food and wine. I'm not leaving the people that I've been involved with. I'm just leaving the business of it, which is being well taken up by this other area. In fact, every month I put on wine dinners in various places, mostly in San Francisco, and I bring community together. I've been doing that for 20 years. And that continues today. I did 3 last week. So that part, and I'm serving my wine, and I love it. And someone just asked me to do, and I love creating community. So many amazing things have happened. Companies have been formed, marriages have been created, people have connected. So that piece of it remains important to me. And I'm still creating that, if you will. And I'm sure that's not going to go away.
Yeah, that's great. It sounds like you can pull the thread. You can continue to pull that thread and weave it into what you're doing. It just it may be in a different format. Let's go down the path a little bit of search funds. I was one of those people that up until recently didn't know what search funds were. I always thought search meant recruiting. And so I was fascinated when I met someone who was in a search fund last year, and I did some research on it. And I think it's really interesting because it draws someone more interested in managing operational risk rather than invention risk. So what is it about that kind of risk that fits how you think and you like to invest? Because I think they present differently.
Yeah, no, 100%. They are both similar and dissimilar, like you are mentioning. I want to say, let's get rid of the word search fund right now. It is the most confusing term to people. You thought it meant executive search. I've had people say they thought it was Google. Fund implies that it's like a venture fund. It's not. I love that business schools have pivoted to call it ETA, which is really what the act is, entrepreneurship through acquiring, through acquisition. And in this case, it's acquiring a small, profitable, healthy business. And so you're right, the invention risk is not there because it's a proven product market fit. But the execution and the creative and the growth methodology and implementation is all available. And what I love about it is, first of all, as you know, venture is a power law kind of story where most of it fails and you hope you get 1 or 2 that make the fund and make your portfolio. This is very different. We don't have a burn rate, meaning we're making money, we're not burning money. We don't have generally second rounds because we're buying profitable companies. We're not in a situation where if we don't go public, the world falls apart. That's not the case at all. It's very different from how we execute on the investment side. But what I love about it is, and I make this comparison, when I started venture, it was Sand Hill Road. And it was a club. And it was a few people who were deeply passionate, who were somewhat academic. They came from these big companies, but they were the research people, or they were at Stanford. And they had this mindset of, oh my gosh, we're going to change the world, and we're going to do it in a way that allows us to then repeat it and mentor and coach others who come along after us. Venture has changed so much. It just doesn't feel that anymore. And the people in the beginning all knew each other. They played well together. They respected each other. They helped each other. They mentored and coached the entrepreneurs coming up. That's what I'll call micro cap private equity with a playbook. That's really what we're doing. We're taking and buying $2 to $5 million EBITDA businesses, so $10 to $40 million sales kinds of businesses. And these are plumbers and electricians and swimming pool cleaners and porta potties, and there's hundreds of these. You walk down the street and you look at around and you're saying, oh my gosh, that's a business. Someone had to install those windows. Someone had to put up those posts. It's all businesses out there. If you look at the world, it's really an interesting exercise. Walk down your street someday and think about everything that got there and how it got there. And those are businesses. And those are the businesses that are not sexy. They're just what we call good, boring businesses. And the type of person who wants to take that challenge on is a different person than that wants to take on that inventor challenge. And it's not worse, it's not better, it's just different. But both are entrepreneurs. Both are laying it all on the line to get ahead, to make a difference, to create something that wasn't there before. And I love that piece of it. And I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. And so I grew up loving, I come from a family that embraced small business. We had small businesses. And so I think there is nobility in creating and building an everlasting small business.
You're listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to activate your imagination and build your creative muscles, I've put together some free resources, including webinars, downloadable content, bonus book content, and even a GPT to help you achieve your goals. Access these free tools to start asking what if today at lesliegrandy.com/resources. What mindset or temperament makes someone well suited to step into a real business with employees, customer, and history? And what signals do you look for that this is that type of entrepreneur?
Great question. So it is all about finding the entrepreneur who is right for this. And one of the things that our model has is it's got an incredible vetting process, because we generally are looking for MBAs out of the best business schools that started at Stanford and Harvard. By the time someone makes the decision that this is what they're going to pursue, they have taken multiple classes. They have met with multiple people who have gone through this, and they have to go out and ask for an investment to do the search part from people who have backed hundreds of previous searchers who have amazing pattern recognition. So that's only part of the answer. So the people coming in are well informed on how hard this is. And the people who are backing them are looking for a specific type of person. What type of person? Grit is the number one thing. Tenacity. They have to have a why. Like, why are you doing this? Is it because you couldn't get the investment banking job or the consulting job? Or is it because you're actually pursuing this? Are you running away from that, or are you pursuing this? Are you doing it because it's going to change the trajectory of your family? Is it because you want to send money back to the town in Mexico? It's a real example, where your family is. What's your why? And I think this is a hard playbook. There are people out there on social media saying, oh, just go buy a business. It's so easy. It is not easy. It is messy. It is hard. It is lonely. It's as entrepreneurial as it gets. So I often say there's three types of people generally that do this: immigrants, military, and kids of family business owners who had to sit around at the dinner table and actually hear the day-to-day. That's who does this.
You bet on someone, you feel like you have a lot of understanding of the track record that made you successful and a lot of what to look for in the signals of an entrepreneur. But not everything has to work out. I mean, I'm sure there are times where certain circumstances didn't play out as you imagined. What's the signal that you should continue to push forward or call time of death? Like at what point do you feel that the situation isn't going to improve in the direction or trajectory you would hope?
So, without getting too much into the weeds, the beautiful part of our model and the model of ETA is that you are being interviewed for a year to 2 years while you're searching. So the investors see your approach. They see how coachable you are. They see how you engage, how you pivot, how you learn. They see how humble you are. It is generally true that arrogant people doing a search are not the ones that succeed. You can't go into a seller's office and say, I'm going to buy your company because I'm going to crush it and do something you never did. You're engaging in a relationship, and you have to have great EQ to understand, yes, that seller is selling for material monetary gain, but it's also selling a legacy that they have spent many years building. And so those are the things. And we learn that because we have a trial period of understanding the approach. And that's partly why this has been so successful. Leslie, I would encourage all of your listeners, if they do nothing else and they're interested in this, there's two Stanford papers that are terrific. One is the Stanford Primer explaining the process, and the other is the Stanford Study that is updated every 2 years, updating the performance, the results of this asset class that has over 34% net returns for 40 years. And so it's really kind of, Bill Belichick wouldn't have been Bill Belichick without Tom Brady. And I would argue Tom Brady wouldn't have been Tom Brady without Bill Belichick. It is these great investors who are coaches and mentors and this great raw talent who maybe have never run anything, but have the qualities that we've been discussing. And I think you probably will relate to this. When I went to Microsoft, I didn't know anything really about technology or marketing, but that's not how they hired back then. They hired to see, were you competitive? Were you tenacious? Could you get in there and share ideas and go toe to toe? 12 interviews later, I guess they said I could. But they were exhilarating interviews. We're looking for people who are engaged in that way. That's the kind of people that are going to succeed.
I think something you said earlier, I want to kind of pull forward to this conversation, which is your natural propensity to figure stuff out, right? That not just the curiosity, but that there has to be a solution that you can get access to by your own intellect, trying to look for it, trying to pursue a path that solves that problem. If that business, for instance, wasn't succeeding, what do you do to investigate where to fix that problem, right? And it isn't always just the owner not doing things, right? It could be so many other things.
And that is a great point. I would make two subpoints on that. One is that, yes, you got to figure things out because 100% of the time in 100% of these companies, there are surprises. Not always, 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 and it's way more than one. And they come when you least expect them sometimes, and they often come early and fast. So how are you going to adjust to that? And the great thing about kind of our approach is we have a bunch of people around the table who aren't going to do that work for you, but have seen many of these things and can say, okay, here's one thing to think about, or here's an approach. So that's number one, okay? You're going to definitely see things you didn't expect. The other element for success here are not only people who can figure this stuff out, but who are doers. You have to be a doer. There is no 9 to 5 here, right? If you have to sleep at the office, if you have to be the one on a Sunday, on a holiday, at the most inconvenient time possible to go do something, you do it. And it feels like rarer and rarer these days are those people around. I don't know about you, but I grew up with that mentality.
Yeah, no, I think what you're saying is the idea is cheap. It's the activation of that idea, which requires all of those resources that you may bring to bear. Some of it may just be stamina, right? That could
Some
just
of it
be the
is stamina.
resource,
Oh,
right?
for sure.
And
That's
so
a
I
piece
think
of it.
and my husband owned a small business for a while in the film industry up in Canada with his son. And I think the thing you always can't prepare for are the other people in your business and what might be happening to them and what that could cause, right? And what challenges that you have with employees that are in a small business much more proximate to you than you are in a Microsoft or an Amazon, right? Your employees know you and you know their lives. So what they contend with becomes a part of your problem set.
Well, and you'll appreciate this. When I left Microsoft and started doing venture capital, we really, there are exceptions, but almost always avoided Microsoft people who were graduating or leaving because they weren't entrepreneurs. They were good at, if they had a computer problem, there was a service that would come in and take care of it, or they had a bunch of resources, or people, because they were at Microsoft, would answer their call. That's not entrepreneurial. You can be extremely good at business, extremely smart, but that's not necessarily the same person who's going to succeed at that HVAC company.
Right. Right. As you talk about the kinds of businesses that you invest in and the period of time you were invested, included the pandemic. And those businesses probably got hit really hard during the pandemic. And a lot of businesses struggled, particularly hospitality related businesses or businesses that really had close customer interactions. What do you think has to happen at that scale for this type of search investment to really be at risk? I mean, is there any kind of sort of world-changing event like the pandemic that you see that could really affect the course of success for search funds?
Sure. But if that black swan event happens, we got bigger problems than this. This has not had a down year in 40 years. AI is going to replace a lot of jobs. I see it happening. It's not going to replace tomorrow, at least, your plumber, your electrician, your HVAC, your dentist. That's why I'm so comfortable with investing in this, is because these are essential jobs. And even during COVID, yes, restaurants and event spaces got hit. But I can tell you this, my plumber bill actually doubled because less people want to do that hard work. And I still need the plumber, right? When I have problems, I still need that company. And so I feel very good about that positioning. I know AI is on the mind of everyone these days, so I kind of want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to ask, that was actually where I was going to go. So yeah, give us some thoughts that you had.
Yeah, I want to talk about it because I've been in technology for a long time. I've never seen anything like this. And I'm not talking about some of these extreme doomsdayer kinds of things, and there are not going to be any jobs, but it's radically transforming business as we know it, without question. And you saw recently a bunch of the SaaS public stocks got crushed because supposedly Claude can create and replicate what they're doing in a weekend. And let's leave that aside. What I do know is this, and I've used it every day now for a variety of different things. If you're a 32-year-old coming out of one of the best business schools, you are going to be AI savvy. You're going to be tech friendly. You're going to embrace the tools that can change the way you work, make you more efficient, can change outbound sales, can change your accounting department, can change your marketing. And you're buying a company in Topeka, and the other plumbers around you are probably run by 60 to 70-year-old guys, probably, who are comfortable with turning on their computer, probably need help from their kids on how to change their iPhone settings. and aren't anywhere near of thinking about how to, in a core way, implement these tools to change their business. So I think the best or one of the best AI investment opportunities is backing these people, buying these businesses to transform those businesses in the next 10 years.
So that's super interesting. So you're seeing the opportunity versus the threat in the field that you're focused on. And so bringing an AI native entrepreneur into that mix really takes not a stair step, but a real jump in evolution for that business. And that's what you would expect to see, with the new class of entrepreneurs that are coming. When you think about using AI, though, for yourself, you talk about pattern recognition as a way for you to really understand where to invest and what works and what businesses do well and what the state of a business is that would accept this type of acquisition and this type of entrepreneurial switch from a family-owned business to an outsider coming in. All those things. Is AI going to help you find patterns, find
sure.
people to you? So is that how you're looking at it? Because it's what's great about AI, right? Is pattern recognition.
100%. So I can say, I want to be in a machine parts industry. As a searcher, as someone out trying to figure out I pick 2 or 3 different hypotheses of industries that I might want to go after. Because you can't do them all. You want to get deep, and you want to learn, and you want to be able to talk to a seller and say, I do understand a little bit about your business. You want to go to those trades. So as I'm thinking about whatever industry that is, and in my fund, we'll have over 100 industries represented. So it's a very broad swath. In any one of those industries, I can go to AI and say, tell me, what are the challenges of this industry? What are the trends of this industry? What are the numbers on average? How big can this get? What should I look out for? And so it is now, AI is so good at creating the research paper that you are up to speed very quickly. And it's sort of incredible. How about this? I want to target industry A, and I want to do it in this geography, and I want to do it with these kinds of sales numbers. I'm going to plug into my AI to call 10,000 owners in the next week and see if any of them are interested in having a conversation. That used to take years.
And it's going to be not only great for you as an investor, but for businesses to be discovered, right?
100%. People don't realize this. Globally, there is a massive transition with the baby boomers aging out. In most countries, they will shut the door. The vast majority of companies will not have someone who calls them and says, I want to take over. And these are people who built this legacy and will see no end value from it. That's changing. America doesn't have quite the same demographic problem. But the beautiful thing from an investment standpoint is the tidal wave, they call it the silver tsunami, of companies that are transitioning. And of course, culturally, family, the kids don't want to take over. The opportunity is so large. And there's, people say, are you worried that so many more people are thinking about buying companies? I'm like, no, because there's only so many Harvard, Stanford, Chicago, Booth, Wharton, name your top business school, MBAs who are going to do this. It's usually about 1% of the class because of what we talked about. People go, it sounds good, but it sounds too hard. Right? So there's only so many who are going to do that. And so when you think about the number of baby boomers transitioning and the folks we are backing, it's really exciting from our standpoint.
So the math actually works in your favor.
It does.
That there's so many businesses to choose from, and that the opportunity to match the right entrepreneur to the right business and industry is really sort of, again, the buyer's market. You're buying opportunities that meet the resources you have and not necessarily just having to go buy an asset and then find an entrepreneur that matches it. So consequently, you're a little bit more in the driver's seat. Do you expect that to continue or in fact grow even more in your favor?
Well, let's look at the numbers. So the numbers are growing. I mean, this next 10 years is going to be the bulge of those transitions. And because of the playbook, I am repeating myself, but because of the playbook, we've got these young, I call them kids, they're 30, 31, 32, they're not kids, but people who are excited and embracing this, and they're doing it not in necessarily Seattle or New York City or the big cities. They're going out to the Omahas and the Wichitas and the Oklahoma cities and you name the secondary and tertiary towns and saying, I can create real value there. So, and then on top of that, we add AI, which we've just talked about. And I think to myself, this is probably the golden moment. And that's what it's kind of like at the end of 5 hours, I said, this makes sense. I bought the vineyard. And I've been doing this now, building up to this. It's not been a 5 hour sit around the table. It's been a 10-year journey. And I have never been so sure of something and had so much fun.
That's so awesome. One kind of retrospective last question. If you look back, because you started in software at Microsoft and had a career trajectory that you changed, is there something you would have told your younger self now that might have made a difference? Or are you really happy with just the kind of organic nature of how your career evolved?
I think there's a couple things. I am pretty much a generalist. And I think I would have told my younger self, get really good at something. I mean, the truth is I did marketing for Bach software. That is as irrelevant today as you could imagine, right? Get really good at something, number one, so that you can be that person where people go, oh, you, like today, I am almost on a daily basis referred to, oh, you want to know about ETA and microcap P and search funds, call John. So I am that guy now. So, but younger self, that's probably what I would have said. The second piece, and I'm pretty good at it, but I had a little more piss and vinegar, as my grandmother used to say when I was younger. And it is incredible how much the world is connected as you go through your career. Do not burn bridges. Authenticity and integrity, 100% will only build a great foundation for you as you go through life. You know, I'm one of these people who I take my cue from Warren Buffett. As he said, at 95, he skips to work. He may not be skipping these days, but you get the point. I'm planning. This is my fun. This is what I want to do for 25 more years. And so knowing that that's my long game, every relationship, every conversation, I really would have said to myself, make sure that they walk away. It's a Maya Angelou idea at the end of a conversation feeling really good. Make sure that you've offered them some value because that will pay off. And that those two things I would say, and by the way, I still think I'm young. I'm still learning. I'm still taking those lessons and applying them. And I cannot wait for the next decade or two.
That's awesome. I love that advice. And I think your perspective on building value in relationships seems like it's a consistent thread across both winemaking and investing, but also just
and community building.
Why it's and why it's a perfect fit for you that you're doing what you're doing. I think that it's really obvious. If people want to learn more about the Agate Helm Fund or taste the wine that your vineyard makes, either one of those things, what would you tell them to do?
I would say www.handofgodwines.com or www.agatehound.fund. or John Staenberg. I'm pretty easy to find, and I always welcome conversations. And I'm in Seattle and San Francisco and Mendoza sometimes, but please reach out. I'm very sincere in saying that. And as you can tell, I love talking about all these topics, and I've had so much fun talking to you, Leslie. Thank you for including me.
Well, this was great. I enjoyed every moment of it, John, and I'm really grateful that you made the time today. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I mean it.
You've been listening to What If with Leslie Grandy. If you want to learn more about creative leadership in the age of generative AI, subscribe to my Substack at lesliegrandy.substack.com.